This is our course on Black history and the Black church. Lesson 3, Reconstruction and Jim Crow. The Black church as institutional foundation. We've seen how the Black church was born and how it sustained enslaved people through centuries of bondage. Now, we arrive at a pivotal moment, 1865. Emancipation, 4 million people are suddenly free. But free to do what? Free to go where? Free to build what kind of life? In the chaos and promise of freedom, one institution became the cornerstone of African American life, the Black church. This is a story of how the church became not just a place of worship, but the foundation of an entire community. We begin with the church explosion. Freedom brought an explosion of Black churches unlike anything America had seen. Across the South, African Americans walked out of white-controlled churches by the thousands, sometimes entire congregations leaving at once. They were done sitting in balconies, done being treated as second-class Christians, done waiting for permission to worship with dignity. Within a decade, membership in Black denominations skyrocketed. The African Methodist Episcopal Church, which had about 20,000 members before the war, grew to over 400,000 by 1880. Baptist associations multiplied across every southern state. By 1900, over 2.5 million African Americans belonged to independent Black churches. These weren't just buildings with steeples. The church became the first major institution that African Americans fully owned and controlled. In a world where Black people couldn't vote, couldn't serve on juries, couldn't own most businesses, the church was theirs, completely theirs. And what did they do with this institution? They built a nation within a nation. First, churches became schools. Remember, it had been illegal to teach enslaved people to read. Now, church buildings hosted day schools, night schools, Sunday schools, teaching reading, writing, arithmetic. Preachers became teachers. Church mothers taught children their ABCs. The church said, "We will educate ourselves." Churches created mutual aid societies, members pooling money to help each other through sickness, death, unemployment. When a member died, the church burial society ensured a dignified funeral. When someone lost their job, the benevolent fund provided food. The church said, "We will take care of our own." Some churches became economic powerhouses, establishing banks, insurance companies, and cooperative businesses. Because white institutions wouldn't serve Black customers fairly, the church created alternatives. The church said, "We will build our own economy." For widows, orphans, the elderly, the sick, the church provided what no government would. It was Social Security, hospital, employment agency, and family all in one. Let's talk about surviving Jim Crow. This mattered desperately because Reconstruction's promise collapsed into Jim Crow's nightmare. By the 1890s, African Americans faced segregation laws, systemic disenfranchisement, economic exploitation, and the constant terror of lynching. Between 1880 and 1940, more than 4,000 African Americans were lynched, tortured, and murdered, often publicly with no justice. How do you survive that? How do you maintain your humanity when the world treats you as less than human? The Black church became a sanctuary, literally and spiritually. On Sunday morning, a sharecropper who had to say "yes sir" to white children all week could stand before his congregation as Deacon Jones, respected and honored. A domestic worker who scrubbed white folks' floors could be Mother Williams, a pillar of the community. A laborer cheated out of his wages could hear the preacher thunder about God's justice. The church doors closed out a hostile world and created sacred space where black people could breathe, could be fully themselves, could remember their worth. The preacher proclaimed, "You may be nothing in their eyes, but you are children of the King." That brings us to the Great Migration. As the 20th century began, African Americans started leaving the South in massive numbers, the Great Migration. They fled terror and poverty, seeking jobs and freedom in northern and western cities. And wherever they went, the first thing they did was establish a church. Chicago, Detroit, Philadelphia, New York. These cities saw hundreds of new black churches spring up. Some were grand institutional churches with thousands of members. Others were tiny storefront churches with folding chairs and a handful. But each one said, "We are here, we are community. We belong to each other and to God." Southern churches sent missionaries north to help migrants adjust. Churches became employment networks, housing referral services, social clubs. If you were alone in a strange city, the church made you feel you weren't alone for long. We must pause to honor the women who made all this possible. Black women were the majority in most congregations. The primary fundraisers, the teachers, the missionaries, the organizing force. Women like Ida B. Wells used her Christian conviction to fuel her anti-lynching crusade, documenting horrors that others wanted to ignore. Yet women were rarely allowed to preach, rather held official leadership. They were church mothers and missionaries, essential but often unrecognized. Their labor built the black church even as formal power remained largely in men's hands. I close with this. By 1920, the black church was the undisputed center of American life, the one institution nobody could take away. It had helped a people survive slavery, and now it was helping them survive Jim Crow. But survival wasn't enough. A new generation was ready for something more, a cultural explosion that would change America forever. And that's our next lesson, the Harlem Renaissance. I look forward to seeing you then.